Whenever I feature a small, sporty, compact car on Topher Drives, I always get the same question. When are you going to film a Volkswagen Golf GTI? Well, today it's good news. It's not the Dacia Sandero, but lucky for all of you, this week I've been living with the new 2026 Volkswagen Golf GTI. When I say new, I mean kind of new. This got a pretty meaningful update in 2025. This is now into its Mark 8.5 generation, which did actually fix a lot of my personal complaints with the Mark 8. And I'm sure you all can assume what those were, especially if you tuned into my latest Mazda CX-5 video where I ruffled some feathers with my complaints. I don't even know if I should say complaints, my calling out of Mazda's cost cutting with their lack of physical controls. Well, for the Mark 8.5 generation of the Golf GTI and the Golf R, Volkswagen have added back some physicality to the interior, which of course we will show you once we get in. But I just gotta say, I'm excited to finally feature a Golf GTI on Topher Drives because I never have. I actually haven't even driven a Golf GTI in a few years. This is the first Mark 8.5 that I've experienced. I never drove one last year when they came out in 25. And I think the last one of these I drove was like a 2023, and maybe I filmed it for like Daily Motor or TheTopher or something. But here we are, home base with a new GTI, and today we're going to show you what it's like to live with. And you guys, I am extra excited because this is the S. It's the base model. This is like a Topher Drives double whammy. It's a hot hatch and it's a base model, so we get to show you what 35 grand gets you when you buy a Golf GTI. This one's pretty basic, Alpine silver. We've got no additional options. It's like 35,000 and some change. Of course, we'll have the entire spec in the description for you guys. But honestly, even in the S trim, Volkswagen does give you some decent kit. Now, there are three different trims, the S, the SE, and the Autobahn. Obviously, the Autobahn being top trim. But really, the only thing you're missing on the base model is the Harman Kardon sound system, a moonroof, which not everybody wants anyway. This one's a really cool slick top. Check this out. And the Autobahn gets the adaptive damper, so this just has a fixed suspension setup. But otherwise, most of the stuff is the same. So we still have the iykyk 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with 241 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. These are now all 7-speed DSGs, and of course, it's front-wheel drive. It's got an electronic limited slip differential, and the elimination of the 6-speed manual was probably the most controversial thing that Volkswagen did for Mark 8.5. Yes, we like that they gave us some physical controls back on the steering wheel, but we don't like that they ditched the 6-speed manual. Though I gotta say, I've really liked living with this 7-speed DSG this week, and I'm excited to show you guys how that performs out on the road. I really think Volkswagen still has the perfect hot hatch formula, and to be honest, this really hurts my soul to say, I don't miss the manual that much. I think this DSG is fantastic. So let's start poking around this thing. We'll show you what it looks like inside and out. Obviously, GTI is now your base Golf in the US as well. Mark 8 only exists as GTI and R in the US. You have to go to Europe or somewhere else if you want a base model Golf or a GTD or a GTE, you know, all these different configurations that they have. It would maybe be cool to have a base Golf, but hey, at least they didn't take our GTI and our R away from us. Okay, actually, don't even want to get to that yet because we have a pretty good amount of storage behind the rear seats. I want to say it's something like 19.9, 20 cubic feet here behind the seats when they are folded up. Load surface is pretty low, just a little lip to load things in and out. Wouldn't really be that big of a deal. And I already gave you a sneak peek of this. Under the trunk floor, we have a compact spare. Obviously, since this is a front-wheel drive configured car, we have lots of room under here, and we benefit there from and spare. What is this? A 125/70R18. It's an 18-inch spare. That is funny. And look at this. Okay, this is another thing I like that Volkswagen does. They put these little guys here to catch your trunk floor. So if you need to get the spare out, it stays up. You don't have to pull it out of the car. Now, this doesn't have a power hatch, which I don't think any GTIs do, but they make this easy to close. And you also have all of your emergency little triangle thing to set in the road if you are in a German highway emergency. So grab this, close it. The hatch is super lightweight. The car overall is pretty light too, 3,200 pounds. Obviously the S saves you some weight not having the pano roof. We showed you the slick top earlier. But inside, you know, it's really not too barren. My favorite part about these GTIs, specifically the S, are the plaid seats that you get in this thing, and this is nostalgic for me because I rode in some GTIs growing up. One of my good friends in high school, currently still one of my good friends, he had a Mark 5 GTI. He currently has a Mark 7.5 GTI. So spent a lot of time in those. The Topher had a Mark 6. So, you know, I've been around a lot of GTIs. Love that they keep the plaid in here. And the cloth material, honestly, it feels pretty decent. Got a fold down armrest there with some cup holders. And in the back, I'm 5'11", sat behind myself. I'm doing just fine. You know, this isn't as much room as you get in like a Hyundai Elantra N or a Honda Civic Si, or probably even a Subaru WRX, but I think the room is adequate, and I think we get a little bit too caught up on backseat room in cars like this that are really meant to be small, and I think this one does the trick with no problem. Lots of good seat back pocket solutions, and they don't skimp you only putting them on either the driver or the passenger seat. You get them on both, and then you have some climate vents here in the middle. And then, okay, here's the thing. Here's what I always complain about on Volkswagens. And someone from Volkswagen a couple of years ago, obviously we send all of our videos over to the PR teams, to corporate when we're done, you know, so they can see them. And I complained, I think it was like a Taos or something, I complained that the door panels didn't match, and Volkswagen was like, wow, we've never heard anyone complain about that. But hey, they must have listened, because these are pretty dang close. The only thing the rear door panel's missing that the front one has is this little bit of trim. And you know what? I'm not mad about it, because there's not even a spot for it back here. And they match with this material here for the elbow rest, and they match with the little bit of Alcantara here on the door panel. Or I don't know if this is Alcantara or the art velour that you get in the SE trim. There was a big blurb on the website about how this new art velour material was available in the SE trim. Of course, the S, I guess it gets a little bit here on the bolsters, but the top of the seats are still cloth in this. And we'll actually get to the seats in a second, but I do want to show you this iykyk Evo 4. This engine's been around for so long, but we'll still show you anyway. It looks exactly the same, and it does, you know, pretty much exactly what it's always done. I'm just noticing that they didn't paint under the hood or something. Maybe this is a pre-production car. I don't know that they all look like this, but this is how this one is. EA888, again, 241 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. I always love when engines have a little bit more torque than power. It makes them quite fun. Pretty boring looking engine cover, but at least it has an cover on there. So that's it. No hood struts. We'll close this hood. For Mark 8.5, Volkswagen also gave this some new headlights and some new taillights. I love that the little bit of lip gloss stays on here, and it actually goes through the headlights. I know this isn't particularly new, but I'm just saying that in general I really like this design. And at night, the Volkswagen badge lights up, and you get some ambient lighting inside, so they really don't skimp you with this S trim. These are our base wheels, and on the S and SE you get an all-season tire as standard. This is a Pirelli P0 and a 225/40 R18. That is, of course, a squared setup. This is no Audi RS3 with a wider tire in the front. But hey, the GTI is kind of the everyman's hot hatch, and with it being mid-30s, I mean, that does seem kind of like a lot, but these days, what isn't 30-something grand? I mean, even the Kia K4 turbo patch thing that we drove, I think that was pretty close. It was like 32,000 or something. So for a couple grand more, you get like 50 more horsepower and quite a bit more torque. But I want to get back to these seats, actually. Another thing I love about GTI is that for Mark 8, they stole the seats from Porsche. And there's nowhere that really says this specifically. You know, they don't say this in like the press release or anything. But if you Google a picture of a Porsche 992 sport seat, or just go watch my video on the GT3 Touring that I drove, it's the same seat. I mean, all of the little, it's all the same. Even down to the backrest being power and the rest of it being manual on some of these Porsches are the same way. But I think the seat design is beautiful. I love the subtle GTI, the plaid in the middle, the mix of materials, the Alcantara, the cloth, the red stitching. It all looks really good. We already talked door panels. We won't bore you with that anymore. But what I was most excited to see in the Mark 8.5 was the return of steering wheel buttons. Yes, now we're not excusing that there are still some things missing in here, but at this point it's kind of beating a dead horse. We know this car's been out for a few years. We don't need to dwell on it, but I want to applaud Volkswagen, yes, for listening to people, not applaud them necessarily for having buttons in a car, because that's should just be standard, but I'm appreciative that they listened to people complaining about those haptic panels that just didn't really work well on this steering wheel. Now we've got buttons. Very good. All right, let's start this up. Actually, I'm going to do that with the door open so you guys can hear it. Not too crazy of a startup, of course, but this car is warm. I have, of course, driven it here. But the exhaust itself, it's a little bit raunchier for Mark 8, Mark 8.5. This is not new for the 0.5, but I remember I went to the launch event of the Mark 8 when this first came out, and I remember being so excited to hear that the GTI popped and burbled for what felt like the first time. You know, the Mark 7 was a little bit more reserved, a little bit more subdued. But this, you hear that? The popcorn machine is in the trunk. Sorry. Okay. All of the things you touch in here, you know, closing the doors and things, they all feel quite nice. They feel higher end than some of the Japanese and Korean alternatives to the GTI. So we like that about this car. And then this does have a bigger screen. I know that isn't always desired. It's funny, the song is called Desire. That isn't always ideal, but yes, this is bigger. It's now 12.9 inches. It's bigger than a foot in American. But it does seem to work a little bit better. Also, these little climate slider guys and the volume slider, they now light up at night, so you can see what you're doing. If it's dark out, of course, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The integration has been seamless. I haven't had any issues with it dropping this week. And this thing is lightning quick. You know, I haven't had any problems using this infotainment this week. It's been totally fine. And the fact that I can control my volume with a button now makes me forgive this a little bit more. And I suspect, honestly, in Mark 9, I bet we'll see a volume knob back. We may even see a standalone climate control panel, but we will have to wait a few more years to find out. I do like that you can kind of set these mood lights in this car. And this goes beyond the ambient lighting. You can see my cluster is currently red, but if I want, it could be purple, it could be green, it could be blue, it could be pink, whatever I want. I feel like red is correct for a GTI though, so I've been doing red, and then my second color has been white, which is kind of like Audi Sport, but same family. So that's kind of what I've been doing. It now has IDA, which you can, hello IDA, there it is. Turn on my heated seat, please.
Climate control functions cannot be controlled by voice operation.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, she can do other things. Turn this volume back down. Okay, so there might be some things that are a little bit clunky in here still. But for the most part, I mean, I don't really use voice commands for anything, and I've been okay kind of just operating this on my own this week. So, all right, well, that's the Mark 8.5 GTI in a walk around. You've got this adjustable armrest, which is mostly okay to use. You've got this cup holder that goes in and out for if you want to use that as a cubby, wireless charger in front of your Porsche style shifter. You've got a spot here for a pencil or something, and the door pockets are quite big as well. But why don't we just go drive this, because that is what GTIs are all about. Now, since this is the base model, we only have a backup camera. Now, I don't know that the Autobahn gets you a 360, maybe it does, but this backup camera is okay quality. When you go into drive, there is, of course, no front camera because we don't have a 360 in this, but we do have sensors up here. So if you're pulling up to a curb or something, you will be okay. Now, the thing that takes the most getting used to in this car, which is so funny to even say right off the bat, is the DSG. Now, this does feel very old school DCT in the way that it's very eager to go. So you kind of have to control your stops and your starts with a little bit of thought. You know, this does not drive like a torque converter automatic. And I think it's because they've kept kind of a raunchy tune on this transmission. It kind of fires off gear changes. Now this doesn't drive like a Kia or a Hyundai DCT, which will sometimes prioritize softness. I don't even want to say smoothness, because this DSG is still really smooth, but it isn't soft. You know, the gear changes are crispy. You could almost take a bite out of them, and you'll understand what I'm on about when I take off. We're getting the full living with experience today because it's just about to be rush hour. Anyway, though, here we go. I feel like I can just pluck each individual gear change out. Also, we're still in sport. Let's go into comfort for a second. We'll go into sport once we go around the corner here. But driving this even in comfort, I mean, you don't feel the gear changes. The only bit of a learning curve is the stop and the takeoff, like we talked about a second ago. So sometimes if you're not careful, You can stop abruptly. It's very hard to do your limo stops in this car with just the way that the DSG behaves. Luckily, for times like this when you need to shoot a gap, even in comfort mode, you can. And so happy to report we still get DSG farts, which they're, you know, quite addictive and which are good for the soul, not necessarily good for fuel economy, because I am addicted to the farts, which means if I'm on throttle, you know, coming out of a corner or something, I am going to take this to 5,000 RPM pretty much every time I have the chance, which means, what have we been doing? Actually, I think it resets every trip, but this week I've been seeing 22 miles per gallon, which really isn't too far off of the 27 that this is rated combined. It's rated 24 city, 32 highway, 27 combined. I think if you're really babying this thing, you could do even better. Car and Driver saw 38 mpg on their highway test, like 70 mile an hour test, whatever they do. Let's put this into sport. Tedward has plagued me with calling sport. Watch too many Tedward videos. That's false. You can never watch too many Tedward videos. All right, let's get around the Buick Envision. Throttle response is nice and linear here. There's no weird turbo lag in this car. I mean, you got a little bit because it's a turbocharged engine, but for the most part, it's very natural to drive this. Paddle shifters are lightning fast to respond. They're just these little plastic guys on the back of the wheel. But watch how high it'll let me rev in a downshift. We're going to do that again because why not? But all of this whole thing, it works together in harmony, and this is no surprise. You know, Volkswagen basically invented the hot hatch, so you guys hear those burbles too? Oh, yes. So obviously the engine, the gearbox, the diff, they all just do exactly what they're supposed to do. The reactions, the timing from everything is just so spot on. The steering is quick. And here's what else I like about this. I left ESC on purpose to demonstrate it doesn't completely kill the experience. You come out of that corner flat out, the ELSD in the front is figuring out what it's supposed to do, traction control is working to not cut your power, and it ends up just being a very fun, heroic experience. Like the GTI makes you feel like a hero. And hot hatches should do that. You know, I always say, these cars should be very usable in day-to-day, they should be cozy, but when you want to put it into sport, they should paint a smile on your face, and the GTI, it still does in its 8.5 form. So we're very, very happy to report that. Why don't we do a launch control? Because yes, it does have it. I'm going to put the gearbox back into S, and then they've actually made this easier to do as well. So you used to have to go through like 16 menus to turn traction off. Now it's only like 3 clicks, which obviously I would prefer it to be a button. Maybe we'll see that in Mark 9, but it's a lot easier to find in the 8.5. So once you do that, simple as brake gas, release brake. And that's good supposedly for 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds. And you know what? I believe him. we'll leave ESC and Sport for a second. We're about to join the highway here and actually show you what it's like to live with this, but we'll get around these potholes first. I mean, you can just absolutely throw this thing around. The chassis is just, it's really a work of art in this. I just love hot hatches, you know, and I'm happier about this car now that I can use the interior without crashing out. Should we see what this sounds like next to some barriers? Oh yeah, okay. See, this is what I mean too, is they've sort of ignited other parts of the soul that the GTI didn't used to do, because it never really had that exciting of an exhaust system from the factory. Obviously, lots of aftermarket choices are available, and still are. But the fact that you can have this much fun with a bone stock GTI, I'm just such a fan of this car. I really do love this way more than I expected to. I saw this pop up on the schedule, and I was excited because so many of you have been requesting GTIs. Like, seriously, it's like every video. When are you doing a GTI? And I've been asking the same question, so I was happy to see this show up on the schedule, but I didn't expect to have such a connection with this car. I think it's just because it's been so long since I've driven one. I forgot how dang good they were. I'm going to floor this out of the corner, and I want you to see how well this Sport ESC and diff just handles everything. Into the brakes, which are just, oh my goodness, the brakes. Just perfect. I mean, the brakes are exactly what I want in a hot hatch. You know, there's nice bite at the top, and you don't have to give a crazy amount of pressure. Whoa, that's an Ioniq 6N. Look at that. I haven't seen one of those in person yet. That's fun. That's the car that's coming for all of our ICE hot hatches, but still cool to see. The brakes are exactly what I want. You know, these are things that Volkswagen gets right on their performance cars. I wouldn't say that they necessarily do the best job with this on their like Atlas and their Tiguan. Usually their throttle tuning is all over the place and not great. But throttle response, braking, steering, it's all spot on here in the GTI. And I meant to talk about steering. It's quick, we showed you that. And the weight is very medium. I wouldn't say it's light, I wouldn't say it's heavy. It's very livable for day to day. Let's get into the real world here. Let's join some traffic and talk about what that's like in the GTI. Well, the one thing we didn't talk about on the little performance loop back there is ride quality. Now, since this is not the Autobahn and it doesn't have the ACC, or what do they call it? Whatever. This doesn't have the adaptive dampers. The car does sort of lean more towards the firm side. Now, this is not as firm as a GR Corolla, but it's more firm than that Kia K4 turbo hatchback that we were driving a couple of months ago. So it's kind of middle of the road as far as hot hatches go. V8 Durango playing the sound of its people there. Very nice. You know, and I'm not mad at this ride quality, but I will just add the fact that after some time in the car the other day, Emily was getting a little bit motion sick, just with kind of the very quick rebound of this car. So it's little baby sacrifices like that that you do have to make with some of these hot hatches when it comes to daily driving them. We'll be quiet and listen to the Durango here. GTI kind of holds its own. Is that a Hellcat? If that's a Hellcat, I'm going to be very impressed with this little GTI. It is a Hellcat. We really weren't too far off of him. He's got 3 times the horsepower. Oh, man. Anyway, though, most of the time you're not really clocking this ride quality. When I notice it the most is when I'm going over expansion joints, imperfections in the road. There is a little bit more crashiness than maybe I would like to see. But at the same time, the chassis is so dialed in with this car, I don't know that I would really want to sacrifice that for... I love cars. I don't know that I'd want to sacrifice that for just a little bit of added ride quality, because, you know, I don't really think the trade-off would be worth it. Even Durango Hellcats can't always get through traffic. And this is the realism that we like to talk about, because these cars, they have to be able to get you to work and back. They have to be able to do your commute without making you uncomfortable, without making you angry. And I think this GTI still completes that mission, because this seat is quite lovely. Granted, I don't have a ton of adjustment with this. Obviously, seating position is good. You know, I can put this seat pretty low down. I can see everything I need to see. Visibility is good out the back. Side view mirrors do the trick. And ergonomics of the steering wheel, I mean, I adore the steering wheel now, especially that it's got real buttons, but just holding it in the hands, I think the thickness is just about right. The design is great, and it's decently quiet also on the highway. You know, this is definitely quieter than some of the Japanese and Korean competitors. I wouldn't say that this is a whisper quiet experience, but it's fine. And if you want to break the silence, there is a 7-speaker unbranded audio system in this, which we will test out later for you guys. If you go up to the SE or the Autobahn, you get a 9-speaker Harman Kardon, so they add a subwoofer and one extra speaker somewhere else. But honestly, you know, historically Volkswagen base audio systems are like really not good. But I'm not mad at this one, honestly. I like kind of was sandbagging it this week. I was like keeping it turned down really low, but today I was like, you know what? I'm gonna like blast some music on my way to film, just to like really evaluate the sound system. And it doesn't sound great, but it's like, for a base sound system, I bet what it is all these are probably all still the Harman speakers, and you just get 2 additional on an SE or an Autobahn. So really not that big of a deal in my book. I really think you'd be okay with this base sound system. Why don't we show you the cruise control, because this has a pretty good suite of driver aids, which obviously this is all standard because this is the base car. So pretty easy to use. Physical button here on the left hand side of the wheel. You click set, and this has some form of pilot assist. It'll steer for you for a while, but it's got a grip sensor, so you can kind of just grip the wheel for a second. It senses your hands are there, and then it'll continue doing its thing. This will also change lanes for you, which we'll show you once we switch highways here, but I am going to cancel this for just a second while we do this ramp. I think in sport. Nobody behind us. I love a gearbox where the gear changes are so crispy you can feel them in your soul. And this is one of those gearboxes. You know, Volkswagen and Porsche, you drive one of their dual clutch transmissions and you never want to try any other ones because they're just so good. You just have a ball with this car. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you guys the lane change assist. Just put this back into drive. I'm going to put this back into comfort. Okay, so let's reset this cruise. Easy to adjust speed and things with this as well. And then also your distance from the car in front of you. That's a physical button here. So it's all pretty easy to use. I would like to get over though, so we'll see if maybe this will let me do this while my foot is on the accelerator. All right, let's see. Oh, okay, it's doing it. So it's kind of a very particular system, so you have to have your hands on the wheel at least part of the way through the lane change. And this is kind of like a Hyundai or a Kia system where it will cancel the lane change halfway through, which I don't really like because I feel like that's kind of unsafe. Now, should you always have your hands on the wheel? Yes, you should, but I feel like once you're committed to a lane change, the car should just carry that out for you. How quick can I get this to do what I want it to do? Yes! I'm such a child with this car. You know, I always like to say too, any car that makes you kind of feel like a 12-year-old, Usually a good car. All right, let's talk about what we're going to be doing living with this today. Well, we've made it to Ann Arbor, which means you guys probably have guessed that we'll be going to the grocery store. And you would have guessed correctly on that. But we're going to stop and get some fuel first because the Topher is taking this to a track day in a couple of days, and I want to make sure he's got a full tank for when he does that. So we're going to be very polite and fill the tank for him. This does, of course, take premium fuel, which is $5.69 today. Okay. Let's put this into park with our push-button shifter. This will not automatically engage the parking brake, but it is right here in the correct spot for an electronic parking brake. Would I love to have a mechanical one? Of course I would. I don't think this has a popper button inside. Nope, it just clicks right open. Oh, this takes regular. I feel like for the track day, he's going to want some premium, though, so we're going to do premium. And it does actually say minimum 87 or 91, so premium it is. There you go. Just over 5 gallons, 30 bucks going into our GTI. There's our fuel cap. That is clicked on. All right, back into drive. Parking brake will also not automatically disengage straight away unless you give it a little tap on the accelerator. But usually I just hit the button myself and disengage a turning circle pretty good. I think I could have exited back there, but it's easier to exit from here and you're not impeding anyone trying to pull in. The only other thing I will say too is on takeoffs, the second you lift your foot off the brake in this thing, it is releasing that clutch. So you're like, need to make sure you have enough distance from the car in front of you. Just make sure you're paying attention because this is very eager to get off the line without any sort of throttle input whatsoever. Ooh, look at this Audi RS7. Is this me in a past video? I feel like I drove that exact spec RS7. All right, we're gonna actually back this in right here next to this Jeep. Now, okay, here's the thing, right? Like, we've driven the Kia K4 hatchback, which is cheaper than this, and it has a 360 camera. So I know there are other things you get in this that you don't get in some of the other competitors, but I think adding a 360 camera to this car would be kind of top-notch. So something I'd like to see, I think, for $35K, but otherwise, I think we're pretty well equipped in this with a heated steering wheel, heated seats, navigation built in, ambient lighting, all the stuff. All right, we'll shut this off, and we'll show you what it looks like in a parking spot. Spoiler alert, it looks like an car in a parking spot because this is not very big. So you can kind of just fit it anywhere, which is why I'm not worried about parking in a little bit more of a crowded area. I'm gonna run in the store, grab a couple of things, and we will resume from there. Walking back up to the base model GTI is when you discover the most irritating thing about it, and that is that it doesn't have proxy key, which is pretty wild. I don't know that I've driven anything in the last couple of years that hasn't had proxy key. Maybe the base model 5-speed manual Nissan Versa, but no, you've got nothing here. I should say it doesn't have KESI, which is what Volkswagen calls their keyless entry. Anyway, so you have to pull the key out of your pocket. Luckily, I've only got one bag of groceries today if you want to then unlock the car. Or you can hold this button and it will only unlock the trunk. I love that you use the little VW badge to get in here. And this does actually have a couple bag hangers, but this paper bag is a little bit too tall, so we're not going to use the trunk for today because I don't want this rolling all over the place. So we're just gonna stick it right here behind the driver's seat where it will fit perfectly. So, key back in my pocket to get in. When this car got dropped off, I thought I was going crazy because I walked out to the driveway and I'm like pulling on the door handle. I'm like, what? Why won't this car open? And then I realized it literally does not have proxy key. So I guess a reason to get the SE or the Autobahn, but come on, Volkswagen. 35 grand and no proxy key? Give me a break. All right, let's get out of the parking lot here and we'll do the sound system test for you guys as we do. Now, as I showed you earlier, you've got these physical buttons on the wheel, or you can use this slide thing, which I think they've calibrated it a little bit better. I still don't like it, obviously, but I do like that I can just use these guys. We'll let this CX-90 go first. Super easy to mute that when you're done, just a quick slide to the left. It always amazes me how long it takes to get out of that grocery store parking lot. But anyway, we've done it. And we've also done a sound system test on this 7-speaker, which I told you guys was really not all that bad. You know, it's got decent highs here with these tweeters, and I think the fact that it has, you know, most of the speakers that the Harman gets makes it sound pretty decent. Now, I haven't heard the Harman in a while. I'm sure it was in the last GTI that we had. I don't think the last one was a bass. I think the last one was an Autobahn, actually, so it had all the stuff. I think for some reason in my head, I always just dismissed the Mark 8 because I was so fed up with the tech with the first couple of cars that I drove. I thought, why would you even consider that as an option? But with my experience this week, I've had such a blast driving this car. I've had so much fun that I really don't care about this anymore. You know, obviously I would like to have something else in its place. I'd like to have a climate panel. I'd like to have a volume knob. But I think I can get over it with this because the screen itself, it works so well. The steering wheel buttons, those work so well. Even Ida's not bad. She tries her best. So I think this new GTI is about 80% of the way there to being sort of the perfect formula. If they ditched some of this tech that's still a little bit silly, I really do think it would be the perfect car. Now, do I miss the manual? Yes and no. I think philosophically I miss the manual because I think every hot hatch should have a manual option available because that's just the way that it should be. But this DSG is just so good that it would probably be my choice anyway. So do with that information what you will. The DSG is lovely. All the inputs in this car are fantastic, as you guys saw. But I think most importantly, this GTI, it still sort of completes its mission in such an important way of having that backseat room, having the trunk space, being somewhat efficient, you know, being able to achieve that 32 mpg on the highway if you're really hypermiling it, having an okay sound system on a base level with a nicer system available, having decent materials in here, a nice leather wrapped steering wheel, these nice seats that are pulled from a Porsche. You know, there's lots of cool factor things and lots of things that are livable, which is really everything a hot hatchback or a hot compact should be. So they still know what they're doing. Trust Volkswagen with this and have yourself a Mark 8.5. I don't know that I'd recommend a Mark 8 because it's annoying to use, but this is less annoying now in 2025 and up.
Please select an event from the screen. Welcome. Please proceed into the lot.
No proxy key, but hey, at least we have auto up-down windows. Look at that Roush F-150. That's pretty cool. And that'll be a wrap for today. Why don't we just do it right here? Sometimes we pull right here and do our wraps. Into park. Parking brake on. I am going to spend a couple more days with this car, so I may end up doing a night drive and final thoughts video. If there's anything I left out, there's anything else you guys want to know, stay tuned for that. But this will be the first one you see. So hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you for watching. And thank you for indulging in the base model GTI. A pretty decent offering here. Right, decent, I feel like is underselling it. Quite a lovely offering here for $35,000 from Volkswagen. And you guys know I appreciate that Volkswagen, among many other companies, they do actually have some base models in their press fleet. It allows us to see like a more mass selling version of the car. You guys know what I'm trying to say. You know I love a base model, but that's going to wrap it up. You guys know that I like this, so I don't think I need to say it anymore. But thank you all so much for watching. And again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. But that's going to do it, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.